Hey, what is up, mortals? It's Mr. Zombie here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 20 of What If Izuku Midoriya Had a Villain Quirk. I just wanted to greet you guys by saying, wow, this has been a while. Yeah, I know it's been some time since I've done this narration thing, but as most of you know, I've been busy writing and sometimes video editing the What If Izuku Was a Stand User series here on the channel. Speaking of which, new episodes of that What If are coming soon, so stay tuned for all the crazy action that's in store leading up to the finale. Till then, sit back and relax, cause the long-awaited ending to this What If begins now. Izuku and the League of Villains stumbled out of the rift they were pulled into, narrowly avoiding the hero's capture. He scrambled off the ground before freezing, as the sight around him had finally registered. The area was destroyed. Several heroes and police knocked unconscious, or worse, all being washed by a figure from the sky, one who was drawn closer to the freckled teen. He took a step back as he could feel an aura of dread emanating from the man. Do not be alarmed, young man. I am not a foe to you. The voice in which the man spoke echoed around the decimated surroundings. You are the child my student has been keeping his eye on, correct? Izuku was in way over his head. He had a feeling that there was more to the league than what first met the eye, but he had no idea they had a boogeyman like this in their closet. The teen had decided to keep his act of joining them going, worried that something was too easy about the rescue. It turns out he was right. Yes, sir. My name is Izuku Midoriya, sir. As the man drew closer, the malefic presence that surrounded him grew more suffocating. He could barely keep himself from buckling. The figure stopped right before him as his friends watched in horror, still hidden from view. Izuku Midoriya, eh? Your quirk is a fascinating one. You've been mastering it so well on your own. The voice took a somewhat smug tone. But you saw it, didn't you? How the morals and beliefs of the people teaching you held you back? You knew you could be so much greater by joining us, that we could make you strong enough to take revenge on all the naysayers who dared put you down. Izuku forced his face to morph into an eager-looking expression. From behind their cover, his friends looked on in silent shock. Momo was shaking her head as tears threatened to spill from her eyes, and Todoroki clenched his fists so tightly his nails threatened to spill blood from his palms. This has to be some sort of facade, right, Shoto? Yaoyorozu ran a hand through her hair. There's no way he would turn to villainy, not after all the work and dedication he's put in. I just can't. I don't believe that he would. It's all right, Momo. I don't believe he would either. Shoto's voice was steady on the surface, but the rest of the students could hear its shaky undertone. This has to be an act. Then again, if whoever that villain is finds out it's all a bluff, I don't even want to think about what'll happen. Izuku couldn't help but tense up as the other members of the league stepped out of the gray rifts from before, surrounding him. He kept his breathing as steady as he could, knowing if they even got a hint of his act, his life would be forfeit. Master, you saved me from the heroes. Izuku glanced over as Shigaraki spoke, shuddering internally at the sheer adoration in the man's eyes as he spoke to his sensei. Of course. I couldn't just stand by as the heroes took you and your allies away now, could I? Now, we must all get going. All Might and the others will arrive soon. Izuku gulped quietly as the man began to open up another rift, silently praying that the symbol of peace would make it in time. In a blistering whirlwind, his prayers were answered as the boogeyman was interrupted by a fist nearly crashing into him, being caught in his hand. I'm not letting you escape again, All for One, let alone with one of my students! All Might's second hand flashed forward, meeting another block by the powerful man. Are you so foolish that you've forgotten that said student has already been liberated of your views? All for One threw a giant luminary into the ground, a crater forming upon impact as Izuku and the villains were almost sent flying back from the force. I believe he has used your quirk against you once already. Why don't you do so again, young Midoriya? Izuku gulped as he saw the villain stare exponentially at him. He would be in grave danger if he blew his cover now, but if he didn't, then he'd be dragged along to the League's next hideout. As precious seconds ticked away, Izuku raised his arms meeting the gaze of his hero, before he smiled ever so slightly. In a flash, he spun around and unleashed a giant cloud of the stickly green fear toxin right toward the League of Villains. Stunned by the sudden betrayal, almost all of them were doused in the neurotoxin, all except for one. Kurogiro was able to open a gate to take Shigaraki away from the cloud, and right next to Izuku. Acting quick, the hero student rolled from underneath the lethally quirked man's attack, skidded into a halt a mere 2 meters away.
You little traitor! How dare you go against us after you pledged yourself?
I'm no traitor, you demented lunatic, and I never pledged myself to the League. I will always be a hero because that's who I am. And what a pity that is. All for One let loose an attack poised to sever Izuku's head from his neck, when All Might leapt into action, sending the man spiraling away with a powerful blow. Shigaraki let out an inhuman growl as one of his hands began to scratch his neck raw, as droplets of blood began running down his back.
No, no, no! This isn't how it's supposed to go!
Crazy red eyes met Verdinian ones as the villain sprinted forward with his hands outstretched.
This is all your fault! I'm going to kill you!
Izuku dodged, cursing the reckless attack he had used moments ago, the cloud taking much of what he had left after being held hostage by the villains. The cloud he made in his escape was easily avoided by the villain as he continued his mad dash towards the heroling. Izuku was stuck playing defense as Tomura relentlessly pursued him, not allowing him long enough to unleash a bigger attack. Ad break! Before we continue, I'd like to talk about our newest channel, Celestia, our channel dedicated to all things Dungeons and Dragons. Currently, we have a series breaking down the different spells in D&D, and soon, we'll be starting some new series as well. So if you're a fan of D&D or have an interest in learning about it, check it out. Additionally, if there's something you'd always wanted to see get made into a video, head over there and leave a comment mentioning it. We'll see it, we promise. Pinky promise! Now back to the video. Suddenly, the fight between the symbol of peace and the destroyer of peace caused an evil shaking tremor to run along the ground, causing Izuku to slip and allowing Shigaraki's hand to find purchase along his leg. The teenager let out a horrible cry of pain, the sound making his friends and teacher cringe as Izuku's leg tissue started to decay.
We have to do something! That villain's going to kill him!
Yaoyorozu, normally the picture of calm, was nearing hysteria. Until Shoto slapped her. The girl clutched her face for a moment before quietly thanking her friend. Panicking will get us nowhere. We need to help Izuku. He glanced at the asserted group of Ida, Kirishima, and Bakugo. Does anyone here have any ideas? Izuku managed to kick Shigaraki away with a low blow from his good leg, pulling himself to a shaky stand as the man-child howled in pain. Izuku winced at the slightest bit of pressure on the horrible wound, knowing that he wouldn't last much longer in a fight like this.
You little shit! What kind of a hero hits someone there?
A competent one! Izuku onwardly cursed, feeling exhaustion creep up on him as his old stutter began to return. The villain managed to collect himself and dodge the blast of neurotoxin that came his way, inhaling too small of a dose for it to truly take hold. He launched himself toward Izuku once more, his hand curled around his neck, his pinky raised.
I'm going to enjoy turning you to dust!
Right as the decay villain's last finger was about to come down, the sound of an explosion and ice crashing against rubble drew the attention of the coherent fighters. A giant, oddly shaped glacier erupted from behind the ruins of a building. Atop it, a figure with 2 others on its back appeared, sprinting up the glacier before the 2 jumped off. One landing on the other's back as explosions crackled, propelling them faster as flames licked along an odd hole in the glacier, causing the frozen substance to subliminate, turning into vapor at a rapid pace and causing a massive detonation that sent the 2 flying into the air, at just the height that Izuku might still be able to reach. Taking advantage of the confusion, Izuku delivered a throw punch to Shigaraki as he freed himself, before unleashing a torrent of gas, sending him spiraling up into the air. He finally peaked, his hand outstretched before he was captured by a softer one. "We've got you, Izuku!" Momo held on tight as the extra weight shook the stability of their flight, sending them down away from the villains at a rapid pace. Bakugo managed to soothe the landing with well-aimed explosions, but they were still left tumbling as Izuku screamed in pain as rubble entered his leg wound. By the time the trio collected themselves, another blistering wind threatened to topple them over. At its end, all three pairs of eyes snapped to its source. All Might and All for One. They saw an older man behind the number one hero and the man himself holding All for One down, a fist planted in the man's head. The three of them relaxed for a second, believing for a second that All Might had ended the threat, when an explosion knocked them to their backs, whisking the air from their lungs. Once more, they pulled themselves up, their eyes seeing just how the battlefield had changed, causing their eyes to widen. Before them stood All Might, but half deflated, standing protectively in front of a woman trapped under rubble. Suddenly, the man deflated completely, making the heroes in training pale. All they could hear was the laughter of All for One as he aimed a shockwave down toward All Might. However, just before dust filled their view, they saw one arm of All Might swell up. Their vision was obscured for several seconds as they held onto each other, helping themselves from being thrown back down once more. When their sight was cleared, they saw All for One sprout a monstrous-looking arm, meeting a blow from All Might head-on, obscuring the outcome for just a beat. In the next second, All Might rose above the villain, bringing his arm down in his ultimate move, the United States of Smash. All for One was slammed down at near Mach speeds, a crater forming as winds whipped in every direction from the impact zone. Izuku watched as All Might raised his fist in victory above the villain, blood running down the horribly mangled hand. And that was all he saw before spots danced before his vision. He stumbled back, drawing the attention of Yaoyorozu, who called out his name. Her voice sounded so far away from him. "Izuku? Izuku! Izuku! No, don't!" Then it was lost. Lost to silence. Lost to the darkness. Izuku was engulfed by an inky black space. He couldn't see anything. It was all dark. However, as he turned his head upwards, a light began to shine into view. He felt as if his soul was being sent upwards, toward the light as it grew brighter and brighter and brighter, until... Izuku blinked his eyes as they opened to a stark white space around him. He heard some sort of incessant beeping close to his ear and felt the softness of a mattress below him. Upon closer inspection, he found that he was in a hospital. He leaned up, hissing as he felt a small twinge of pain coming from his ribs. He was quickly distracted from that as the door to the room opened. A despondent Inko Midoriya entered with a small Tupperware container full of food. "Mom?" Inko froze, her head cranked up to see her baby awake. Her eyes filled with tears as the food fell to the white floor. She flew across the room, throwing her arms around her son, as if it was magic. Tears began to flow from Izuku's own eyes as he embraced his mother tightly. He was safe. It was a week later that Izuku was released from the hospital, being accompanied by Yaoyorozu and Todoroki, who visited him on the day of his release. Although the circumstances were not the best for him, he could no longer be in the hero course due to the permanent damage caused when Shigaraki had grabbed his leg. "This isn't fair for you, Izuku. You were so strong through everything. You've worked so hard," Momo said as she wiped tears from her eyes. "If only we had just moved faster, we could have..."
"Momo, don't say that. Without all of you, I wouldn't be here,"
Midoriya interrupted with a smile.
"Besides, I won't be going too far. Principal Nezu recognized my aptitude in quirk analyzation and will be personally tutoring me. Besides, I was told by Aizawa that the support course is whipping up some prosthetics for me, so I'll be able to walk again. I may have lost my leg, but I can still become a hero again."
"You'll always be a hero, Midoriya." The jungle-haired teen turned as Todoroki spoke.
the heterochromatic male placing a hand on his friend's shoulder, an almost unnoticeable smile on his face. The fight between good and evil may have crippled Izuku, but he was far from hopeless. Within him, he still held the heart of a hero, and that would never change. Thank you all for sticking around to the conclusion of this story. I hope that you enjoyed it. Before this video ends, I would like to thank our Patreons, BD Flames, Ethan Davis, Terry Chills, Shifter Miles. God, I hope I said that right. Adam Zil, XAVBO3, and Joshua Phillips. Secondly, I like to also thank our YouTube members, Toy Acosta, Rob the King, Sith Lord 906, CF2364, and Knuckles. Remenu Tempest, Angel Juarez, Donald C. Stewart, Brian Greer, and Demonized Fox. I'd like to thank everyone involved in today's excellent content. Their details are in the description below. Well, that's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching, and have a great day.